right. So this video, if you're watching it, is because you didn't do so well on 7.3b or 7.3a. Okay. So rational numbers. Okay. Just let me write it here so you know 7.3a and 7.3b. Okay. So we're gonna start with the first one. It says, what is the result of adding? So it just wants you to add 3.5 and 1/3. So what is the very first thing we have to do when we are adding fractions? When we are adding or subtracting fractions? Okay. So if you said find a common denominator, you are correct. So we have to find our common denominator first. So to do that, we're going to list our multiples of 2 and 3 to find the first multiple they have in common. Okay, so we're going to find the least common multiple of these two. So for 2, we have 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12. For 3, we have 3, 6, 9, 12. Okay, I'm going to stop there. So what is the first number that they share in or have in common? Okay. If you said 12, they do have that number in common, but the first one or the smallest one they have in common is 6. So that's going to be our common denominator. We're going to have a common denominator of 6. Okay, and we're adding these two. So now what do my 2, I had to multiply it how many times to get 3? Sorry, to get 6. How many times did I have to multiply it to get 6? I had to multiply it 3 times. Yes. Okay. But before I can do this part, I have to turn this mixed number into an improper fraction. Okay. So let's do Texas to this. So remember, I'm going to multiply and add. So 2 times 3 is 6 plus 1 is 7. So that means that is 3 and 1/2 is equal to 7/2. Okay. So I have 7/2 plus 1/3. But I want my common denominator to be 6 because we said that's the first common multiple they have. So 2 times what gives us 6? Well, we said 1, 2, 3. So 2 times 3. And what I do to the bottom, I have to do to the top. So 2 times 3 gave us 6. 7 times 3 gives you 21. And 3 times what gave us 6? Well, 1, 2. So 3 times 2. So that means I have to multiply my numerator by 2 also. Because what I do to my denominator, I have to do to my numerator. So 1 times 2 is 2. All right. So now that I have a common denominator, I can add my 2 fractions. So because they are the same. So 21 plus 2 is 23. And 6 and plus, we don't do nothing with our 6. We just carry it over. Okay. So your denominator, you don't add or subtract. You just carry that right over. So I have an improper here. I cannot have an improper fraction. I need to turn that into a mixed number. So to turn this into a mixed number, I'm going to do NIDO. That's numerator in, denominator out. So can 6 go into 2? No. Can 23 be divided by 6? Yes. How many times? If you said 4, yes, 6 times 4 is 24, but remember you want it to be under 23. So it cannot be 4. So it would be 3. 6 times 3 gives you 18. So you're going to subtract. You have 5. Okay? So you have 5. Your numerator becomes your your remainder becomes your numerator, and your denominator stays the same. 3 and 5, 6. Okay? So you got lucky. I solved this one out all the way for you. I wasn't. I just got carried away. So let's go on to our next one, number 6. It says Mrs. Mott's fourth period voted on what color they should paint the slide on the playground. The results are shown in the graph. What fraction of the votes were for yellow? Okay, so we want to know what fraction of the votes were for yellow. Yellow is right here. Okay, do we know how many people voted for yellow? No, right? It doesn't give us a fraction. But can we determine that? Yes, we can. Because we have the number of people who voted for blue and the number of people who voted for red. Okay. So this graph here is going to represent one whole. All the people that voted. We don't know how many people voted for in this survey. So remember, we're going to represent one whole as 1/1, and then you're going to have to find a common denominator. Okay. So if we want to know how many voted for yellow, you're going to have to do two steps. You're going to have to, first of all, we have to figure out how many voted for blue and red, okay, before we can figure out how many we voted for yellow. Once we have how many voted for blue and red, we have to do one other operation to figure out how many voted for yellow. So if we have 1/5 voted for blue and 1/3 voted for red, how are we going to determine how many voted for blue and red? Okay. If you said add, you are correct. So you are going to add these two fractions together. But remember, you have to find a common denominator. So you need to list out your multiples of each. Okay. I'm not going to do 3. You can finish you can finish off 3. Okay. And then you're going to find your common denominator. Once you find your common denominator, you're going to take your answer here and you're going to subtract it from one whole. But before you do that, you have to have a common denominator here. Because this is 1, it should be easy. Whatever common denominator or whatever your denominator is here, you're just going to multiply the 1 by that denominator, because 1 times any number gives you that number as your answer, right? So, and then remember, what you do to your denominator, you have to do to your numerator. So you're going to multiply both of these by whatever your denominator is here. Okay? So finish solving that out. Pause your video so you can do that, and then resume and so you can come back to 7. All right, moving on to number 7. It says a submarine in the Atlantic Ocean is at a depth of 349 feet. If they're at a depth of 349 feet, what would the depth of the submarine be after ascending 44.5 feet? If they're at a depth, okay, if we're talking about how deep something is, are we talking about it going up or down? Okay, if you said down, you are correct. So that means this is a negative 349. What would the depth of the submarine be after ascending 44 feet? If they're ascending 44.5 feet, are they going up or down? Okay, if you're still struggling with ascending, ascending is the opposite of descending, and descending is down. Descending equals down. Okay, ascending is the opposite of descending, so that's going to equal up. Okay, so if you're at a negative 349 feet and you're ascending, 44.5 feet. Okay. So now you're going to follow your integer rules. Remember, same sign add, different sign subtract. Okay. That is for adding and subtracting because we are adding and subtracting. Okay. So you're going to finish solving that problem out. Okay. So pause your video, finish solving it out, and then come back. And this is a 4. I just started to write something else, so I changed it. So that's a 4. Okay. So moving on to number 8. It says the record low temperature in Houston for November 12th is a negative 3 degrees. The record high temperature is 83 degrees. So the record high is 83. And the record low is a negative 3 degrees. What is the difference between the record high temperature and the record low? So we want to know the difference between the record high and the record low. So your keyword difference, let me do it in another color, means to do what? What operation are we doing? Okay. If you said subtract, you are correct. Okay. Difference means to subtract. Okay. So 83. I don't know why I put an 80. Sorry, because I was saying 83. Okay. Minus a negative 3 degrees. So remember, again, to follow your rules, same sign add, different sign subtract. But before you can follow these, what do you have to do with subtraction? Okay. So let me erase those so you don't get missed. Before you can follow those, you have to do, remember, keep the first, change subtraction to addition. Okay. And change second number to the opposite. Okay. So once you do these steps, once you've done this, then you follow same sign add, different sign subtract. Okay. All right. So go ahead, pause your video, finish solving that out. When you're done, come back and work on so you can finish up number 9. All right. So number 9, it says a scuba diver dove to a shipwreck 15.5 feet below sea level. The diver descended 3/4 of a foot each minute for the first 8 minutes. So 3/4 of a foot for each minute for 8 minutes. What was the diver's death after the 8 minutes? So they want to know the diver's death after the 8 minutes. Okay. So this one is a little bit of a challenge, but we can do it. Okay. So if it's descending, is it a positive or a negative? Okay. Descending is negative, right? So he's descending a negative 3/4 every minute for 8 minutes. So if he's doing that for every minute for 8 minutes, what operation are we doing? You said multiply, you are correct. That's why I said it's a bit of a challenge because it's multiplication. Okay. And if he's 15 1/3 feet below sea level, would that be a positive or a negative? That is a negative 15 1/3. Okay. So now we're going to multiply these. Multiplying fractions, I feel, is super easy. Okay. Negative 3/4 times 8. First of all, we have to put a 1 under our 8 to make it a fraction. So now we have 3 times 8 24. 4 times 1 is 4, and that is a negative. So I can simplify this by doing needle. 24 divided by 4 is 6. Okay, so he descended a negative 6 feet, right? So let me put that. In 8 minutes, he descended 6 feet. So I don't have to say negative because we know descended is a negative. Okay, so if he was at a negative 15 and 1/3 and he descended 6 feet, okay, it's like subtraction. But remember, we have to do our, keep the first. So we're going to keep a negative 15 and 1/3. Change subtraction to addition and change the 6 to the opposite. So now are your sign. So now you're going to follow same sign add, different sign subtract. Okay. So go ahead and pause the video, finish solving that one up. And if you still need to do the other two, if you struggled more with this section than the other two sections, you're going to go to the next video, to the other video and work out those problems. Okay.